Yesterday, the hashtag release the JJ cut was in the top 10 Twitter trends for quite a while. Now why? Why is this trending? Well, some information has come to light, maybe. It's rumors and speculation. There are some leaks online about some of the production problems for the Rise of Skywalker and how JJ Abrams originally shot, one version of the movie or had a lot of scenes in the movie he intended and thought were going to be in there. But Disney made some changes, some of which he didn't even know they were making until it was too late, to modify the movie to make it more appropriate for, as far as they thought, for audiences. Which makes sense, because I saw The Rise of Skywalker, and there were some parts in there that didn't really seem to make sense, or were not fully explained. Right? Apparently, the latest rumors, he intended the movie to be 3 hours long, and with all the stuff he had planned to originally put in there, it would have fleshed out the story better, some of those things, and there would have been more things to make people happy. And before I continue with this video, I just want to say spoilers, because a lot of this stuff in here, these are bullet points that were leaked on Reddit. A lot of these things, in order to talk about them, we have to talk about things that happened in The Rise of Skywalker. So if you haven't seen The Rise of Skywalker yet, go see it and then come back and watch this video. Now, before we get into it, we must say that the source for this leak, or the person who's leaking it, is supposed to be someone who talked to someone who was very involved and familiar with the production of The Rise of Skywalker, and someone who knows JJ Abrams very, very well. That's the explanation of where this information is supposed to come from, the purported source. And also, against the backdrop of all this, JJ Abrams, as you may or may not know, there was a bidding war for him and his production company, Bad Robot, by a lot of studios. Apple, I think Disney, and Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers won, and JJ Abrams is going to work for Warner Brothers and presumably head up or work on DC projects. And according to this scooper, that pissed Marvel and Disney and Lucasfilm off, because DC for Warner Brothers is a competitor to Marvel, a Disney brand, and they were mad at JJ Abrams for jumping ship to go to the competition, the enemy, and part of them tinkering with The Rise of Skywalker with his movie was punishment to make him look bad or something like that. Again, I don't know if that's true. That could be complete BS. But let's go into that. Disney was one of the studios who were in that Bad Robot bidding war last year. Disney never had much interest in Bad Robot as a company, but they did in JJ because they saw Warner Brothers, who JJ went with in the end, as a major threat. JJ is very successful at bringing franchises back like Mission Impossible, Star Trek, and Star Wars. Warner Brothers is struggling with DC, and aside from Wonder Woman, DC is still seen as a bit of a joke in its current state by the GA, I assume general audience. And I'm offended as a DC fan. All these recent movies they've had that are successful, like Joker and Aquaman and Shazam. Well, Shazam was critically successful. I don't know about financially. But really, unfortunately though, it's true, there are still a lot of people who really put down DC and are like, Marvel's better, all this stuff, even now, even though DC is kind of riding the ship for themselves. That perception, unfortunately, is still out there, unfairly. Warner Brothers wants Abrams for some DC projects. My source said that this generation Star Wars is the MCU, and Marvel's biggest threat is a well-operational DC. I agree with that. They want to keep DC in the limbo that they're in right now. They're not in limbo, they're getting themselves out of that. Didn't you see Joker and Aquaman? Abrams jump-starting that franchise with something like a successful audience-pleasing Superman movie makes them nervous. And that makes me happy. If JJ Abrams is going to focus on making a great Superman movie, bringing Superman back, I'm for it. I've always been on Team Abrams anyway, if you see my earlier videos. I'm a fan of his and him coming to Warner Brothers and DC if that happens. Their goal is to make JJ look bad to potential investors and shareholders. My source mentioned this shortly after the premiere. The Rise of Skywalker we saw last night was not the Rise of Skywalker we thought we worked on. JJ was devastated and blindsided by this. He's been feeling down over the last 6 months because of some of the ridiculous demands Disney had that changed his movie story. While the scenes were shot, a lot of the changes were made in post-production and the audio was recorded and altered. My source said they've never seen anything like this happen before. He's the director and he wasn't in the know about what they were doing behind his back. Apparently, JJ felt threatened over the month leading up to the premiere. JJ was brought back by Iger, not Kathleen Kennedy. Meaning, JJ Abrams directed The Force Awakens. He left. Rian Johnson did The Last Jedi, and then JJ Abrams came back for The Rise of Skywalker. That's what that's referring to. Disney insisted on more fan service, and yes, The Rise of Skywalker was heavily fan servicey, but I didn't mind the fan service. I appreciated them trying to make the fans happy, which is something Rian Johnson didn't care to do in The Last Jedi. Less controversy. JJ's original agreement when he signed on was indicating he would have way more creative control than he did on The Force Awakens. It became evident this wasn't the case only a couple of weeks into shooting when the trouble with meddling started. Let's go down a bit. The ending that will blow your mind was a part of this. Apparently, JJ Abrams tried as part of the fan service and to give people what they wanted. He wanted to have a lot of characters from previous Star Wars movies like Luke, Anakin, Mace Windu, other people, Obi-Wan, famous Jedi Force users show up in that final confrontation between Rey and Palpatine. We heard a lot of their voices, right? But we didn't see them on screen. Originally, I guess they were supposed to be on screen. And I'm inclined to believe that because I thought I read somewhere that Hayden Christensen, who played Anakin Skywalker in the sequels, who later became Darth Vader, I thought he was supposed to be in this movie and had filmed stuff, but you never saw him in the movie. So that does make me think he might have seen some stuff and they cut it out. Also, Matt Smith, right? Wasn't he? Who was Matt? Was he one of the Doctor Who's? I don't watch Doctor Who, but I think that's what he was supposed to be in it, right? That's what I heard too, but he was not in that movie at all. So I do believe that there were a lot of things that were shot that were cut out. Older actors were included like Hayden, Ewan, and Samuel, and anyone who wasn't animated. The Force ghosts weren't meant to be voices because they shot that footage on camera. The actors were in costumes. Rey was supposed to be surrounded by the Force ghosts to serve as sort of a barrier between her and the Sith surrounding them. In January, JJ suggested that they turn this into 2 films. This is referring to the fact, what I said before, that originally he wanted this to be 3 hours long, or maybe 2 films, to properly explain everything that was in the movie, to flesh it out. My source told me this well before Chris Terrio, the screenwriter, mentioned it in an interview a couple of days ago. When Disney said no, JJ was content with making this 3 hours long. Over a period of 9 months, JJ started realizing that one by one his ideas and whole scenes were being thrown out the window or entirely altered by people who have no business meddling with the creatives. I believe that filmmaking by committee thing because I think that's been all over Disney Star Wars from the beginning. A lot of people who do not know or care about Star Wars lore, who do not know about proper storytelling, or character development, and I think Kathleen Kennedy's one of those people, were influencing how the movie's made when they should have let actual writers and directors just be the ones to do that, who actually like and care about Star Wars. They cut some of the scenes from the light speed skipping segment. Some of the planets that were cut were Kashyyyk, Naboo, and Kamino. That was the scene where Poe was piloting, the Millennium Falcon, and they were trying to evade some, they were running from some First Order people, and they were light speed skipping, jumping. That was an interesting concept. But apparently there were more planets that they were supposed to skip by that we didn't see. This next bullet point references, a lot of Rose Tico scenes that were cut out. You probably heard about that Where's Rose controversy that came out last week. People were upset that she was only in the movie for about a minute. And yeah, I believe the reason she was only in the movie for a minute was because they cut a lot of stuff out. This goes into that. The late November cut, the last cut JJ approved of, had scenes with Rose and Rey still. JJ wanted to give her a more meaningful arc. Disney felt that was too risky too. I assume because a lot of people love Rose Tico, but she's a very polarizing character. So I assume that Disney, if this is to believe, what this means is that Disney felt that giving her too much exposure would anger people who didn't like her, and they were trying to avoid controversy, and so they were cut a lot of that out. My source mentioned that Chris Terrio said that it was because of the Leia scenes, but this is only partially true because she had 4 other scenes, including 2 with Rey, Daisy, that Leia was not in. Chris Terrio gave an interview where he said something like they had to cut out Rose's scenes because they involve Leia and because Leia was mostly CGI, all CGI because of Carrie Fisher's passing. It had something to do with some technical problems, and they had to cut everything involving her in those scenes out, including Rose. This is saying that's not true, not completely true. Finn wanting to tell... This next part delves into Finn wanting to tell Rey something, and we never found out what it was in the movie. Finn wanting to tell Rey something was always meant to be Force sensitivity. In the 3-hour cut, it's explicitly stated. There was a moment when Janna and he were running on top of that Star Destroyer, and Finn needed to unlock or move something, and he Force moved it and acted surprised when it happened. This was replaced with a CGI'd BB-8 fixing whatever he needed to fix on there. I don't remember that BB-8 fixing part, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. It means I don't remember it. I'm inclined, this is believable because, you know, what was Finn trying to tell Rey? I mean, why have that in the movie if they weren't going to do anything with it? So I do think it's believable that there was more to explain that they cut out, which is why we were confused. And the Force sensitivity stuff, there was a part in the Rise of Skywalker where Finn was, he seemed like he was like concentrating or like had a headache or whatever, and I think that was supposed to be Force stuff. And in The Force Awakens, he was able to activate he activated the lightsaber for a little bit. So I'm inclined to think this one might be true. Because only people who have Force powers can use and activate lightsabers, right? Or am I wrong about that? There were a bunch of scenes where Rey and Kylo separately went through quiet moments of reflection to deal with what they were going through. On her part, her going through the realization that there's something sinister about her past. Him going through regret and remorse but trying to shut it out. My source said that the Kylo scenes were especially amazing because of Adam's performance and how he managed to portray that inner turmoil. Yes, Adam Driver is a good actor. It provided much more context and added deeper meaning to both his battle with Rey and the final redemption arc at the end. It didn't happen so suddenly, and it was more structured than what we got. The Kylo Rey scene where he dies was at least 4 minutes longer with more dialogue. Ben was always supposed to die. Source also added that if he wasn't, then that might have been in an earlier draft, which they haven't read. JJ's cut still exists, and will always exist. We most likely will never see it unless someone accidentally leaks it. Wow. Is somebody going to leak it? Is that like is that a veiled threat? And this last part that I highlighted goes into the Finn-Poe romance or flirtation that was teased throughout, I think, since this entire sequel trilogy started, or at least since The Last Jedi. And a lot of people thought that we were going to get some Finn-Poe attraction or whatever in The Rise of Skywalker and didn't get it. This is explaining why that didn't happen. JJ fought to have Finn and Poe in The Rise of Skywalker, I assume together, the way that is written and phrased. But he lost that battle as he lost many creative battles for this film. So there we have it. That's not everything because I don't want this video to be too long. I tried to include the most salient points. I'll put a link to this in the description below. So, I don't know. I mean, is this true or is this not? It's a leak on Reddit. That's not something that can be like confirmed by anything. But there was an article on MovieWeb that had quotes from an editor from The Rise of Skywalker called Marianne Brandon. And she spoke a lot to the rushed production. I don't think she said anything about any cut scenes, but she did say that it was a very hectic production and they had to rush to edit things under really tense and unfavorable conditions. And so that does align, why would this production be rushed and difficult? Because they were filming a bunch of stuff and cutting it out, perhaps? That's one reason why that could have been. So, I don't know. I do believe that The Rise of Skywalker was a very stressful production, the same way, Justice League was before. Now, is there a different version of the movie with all this stuff in there that, would make the movie like a more of a complete storytelling experience? I don't know. And you know, was Disney really willing to tamper and hurt this movie just as payback, pettiness to hurt JJ Abrams for leaving them for DC? I don't know about that. I mean, I don't know if they would like mess up their own movie, their own product they're investing heavily in, just out of that level of pettiness, right? I mean, that doesn't seem like a reason why they would sabotage their own product that much just to hurt JJ Abrams, because you know, this movie is good for them and their brand. So I don't know. I mean, all of this, take it with grains of salt. I don't know if this is true or not. We'll never know if any of this is true, probably, unless, you know, somebody straight up says it, like JJ Abrams himself. And I don't think JJ Abrams is the type of person who would ever say something like that. But maybe this is him on the sly, or someone who works with him doing his dirty work behind, you know, in another way. But who knows? So what do you think about these leaks, these Rise of Skywalker leaks about the JJ cut? Do you believe it or not? Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please like it on YouTube and subscribe to the channel because I appreciate your viewership, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.